November 1939. A Benedictine monk named Herman Keller is in neutral Switzerland enjoying a boozy evening of brandy and cigars.
His drinking partner is Alfred Etscheid, a Berlin lawyer and a friend of Joey Ox. Remember him from the previous episode?
The conversation takes a turn and Etscheid reveals that the war will be over soon. He whispers that a group of German generals are planning a coup. They've already dispatched an agent to the Vatican to seek peace terms via the Pope.
Etscheid doesn't know it, but Herman Keller is an SS spy. The hunt is on. Joey Ox is a marked man.
Et Spiritus Sanctus.
Hello, darlings. This is Spies and Ties, a series of World War II in real time, and I'm Astrid Deinhard.
And I'm Timothy Peach.
This is the final episode of our mini-series about the Vatican in World War II.
We saw last time just how deeply involved Pope Pius XII is with the plotting by the German resistance to kill Hitler and make peace. When we left the story in April 1943, we saw that our friend Josef Müller, Joey Ox, and his Jesuit pals were getting ready to blow up Hitler as the Führer visits one of his new bunkers near Munich. But the Nazi intelligence were on the trail and had been for some time. They've never trusted the Catholic Church or Pius or Joey Ox for that matter.
Reinhard Heydrich's Sicherheitsdienst, the SD, the intelligence arm of the SS, has an entire unit dedicated to church affairs. It's called Unit 2B. At its head is none other than a turncoat priest, Sturmführer Albert Hartl. He was ordained in 1929 by Cardinal von Faulhaber, Archbishop of Munich. For 4 years, he taught religious students and was appointed prefect at the seminary in Freising. Somewhere along the lines, he began to associate with a group of conservative clergy who had been attracted to the Nazi Party. In 1933, he joined the Nazi Party, and in January of the next year, he becomes an SD informant.
Hartl has had his eye on Joey Ox for several years since he came to the SS attention for his role gathering evidence of breaches of the Concordat. Hartl has got all sorts of theories. Some are a bit strange, like that Joey is a secret Jesuit spying for the Vatican and that the Pope gave him special permission to have a wife and family in order to maintain his cover. Now, as Joey begins his mission for Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, double agent at the head of the German military intelligence, the Abwehr, one of Hartl's agents is keeping watch.
That's where Herman Keller comes in. He began his career as a Benedictine monk at Beuron Abbey in Baden-Württemberg, but he soon became bored of prayer and celibacy. He sought a life of alcohol, sex, and espionage, and he too became an SS informant. One of his first actions was to attempt a Nazi coup in the Abbey. Like a cuckoo in the nest, he fabricated charges against the arch-abbot and took over the leadership for himself. And who came to the rescue of the monks?
Our hero, Joey Ox, of course. Joey investigated the whole affair for the monks and discovered that all the charges against the arch-abbot were inventions by the SS. The furious monks at Beuron threw Keller out and sent him as far away as they could, to Mount Zion in Palestine. That didn't stop Keller spying, though. While in Palestine, he continued to report on the monks and even spied on the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Amin al-Husseini.
Keller's SS work takes him to Switzerland in November 39, and after his night of drinking with Alfred Etscheid, he decides to head to Rome in pursuit of his old enemy, Joey Ox. There, he discovers from some of his Benedictine contacts that Joey has visited the Vatican several times in the past few weeks and that he has links to dissident generals back in Germany. This is about the same time that Pius is deciding whether or not to get involved in the conspiracy. Keller's close to blowing the whole thing open and getting revenge on Joey.
Keller rushes back to Berlin to report to his SS masters. Fortunately for our man Joey, the report also makes its way to the Abwehr, and Canaris warns Joey to avoid Rome. He also handles the SS. He claims Joey as his own agent and has him write up a false and deliberately unbelievable report about a supposed general's coup that had been planned shortly before the outbreak of war. It names Walter von Reichenau as one of the key plotters. Canaris knows that von Reichenau is a Hitler loyalist and would never plot against his Führer.
When this report makes its way to Hitler, he slams it down.
Das ist doch vollkommener Unsinn!
Nonsense, he cries, as he reads Reichenau's name. Canaris' fake report takes the heat of the plotters. It worked. It explains why Joey's name is connected to all these rumors of a coup. Canaris can claim that Joey is nothing more than a loyal agent who has been investigating the matter in Rome. Canaris has saved the plot, but only for now.
But spies like Müller, Hartl, Keller, they're only a small part of the intelligence picture. A lot of the intelligence legwork goes on much more mundane ways. The various embassies in Rome are hubs of intelligence gathering. At cocktail parties and press events in Rome and at the ceremonies in the Vatican City itself, ambassadors and officers trade information and battle for influence. When war breaks out, the Germans look to be in a good place. Their ambassador Diego von Bergen is a true Vatican expert. He began his career all the way back in 1906 as a junior officer. He's so committed to his role that he turned down the job of foreign secretary and the glamorous role of ambassador to Paris so that he could remain in Rome.
In turn, the Vatican and the Pope have a great deal of respect for Bergen. Pius XII and Bergen have a friendship dating back to the Great War, when Bergen was in the Foreign Office and Pius was papal nuncio in Berlin. Even though relations between the two states soured during the Concordat era, the Vatican still has great respect for Bergen. So, I suppose Bergen will do a great job collecting information for Berlin, right? I mean, he's got great experience and the right contacts, hasn't he?
Actually, no. Bergen's a bit like Canaris. He's an old-fashioned conservative who has little time for the Nazi leadership or their policies. He also despairs at the way the Reich government treats the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Gradually, he withdraws from daily ambassadorial life. He continues to sign papers and appear at ceremonial events in Rome and the Papal Palace, but that's it. More and more, he leaves affairs to his deputy, Fritz Menshausen, whose experience and contacts are nowhere near as well developed.
And the Vatican has stepped up security and are keeping snoopers in the dark. Remember in the previous episode how we described the steps taken to keep secret the visit of the British ambassador Darcy Osborne to the Pope's office in February 40? Do you remember? There's a decent-sized German-speaking Catholic community in Rome, and many of these are patriots willing to share fragments of information with the embassy.
There's also a seemingly endless supply of small fry willing to sell whatever gossip or whispers they've picked up in Rome or in the Vatican for a price. Bergen largely views this intelligence market with suspicion. But the embassy does develop a close relationship with one particular source, Monsignore Enrico Pucci.
He holds no official position in the Vatican, but wanders its passages freely, keeping an eye on the visitors and chatting with guards, ushers, and chamberlains. He sells his stories to almost anyone, whether that's journalists from America, Germany, or Japan, or the intelligence services of Germany or Italy. According to Time magazine, before the outbreak of war, he was making about $1,000 a month selling his stories to foreign correspondents.
Still, the German embassy is blind to the biggest development of early 1940. That Pius is the link between the German resistance and the British. But Nazi German Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop thinks that too many of his diplomats aren't Nazi enough. So he maintains his own independent sources, also in the Vatican. One of them is Rudolf Likus.
Likus is an unimpressive individual. One contemporary describes him as semi-literate, but Ribbentrop has pulled some strings with Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler and has had Likus commissioned as an SS major. Now, he serves in the Foreign Office as an intelligence advisor to Ribbentrop.
The SS. Not Germany's elite vanguard, but a boys' club for society's rejects.
Well, Likus may be nothing special, but he does seem to have some success in intelligence work. In fact, he claims to have a source right at the heart of the Vatican. Harold Friedrich Neite Jasper, a press attaché at the German embassy in Italy. Supposedly, Leiter Jasper has a source in the Vatican Palace close to the office of the Secretariat of State, the Vatican's foreign ministry.
So Likus has a source who has a source.
Yep. And he is apparently very good. Leiter Jasper's reports back to Berlin are the gold standard of intelligence. They're bursting full of names, dates, and events. Likus calls him our man in Rome, and his information is so crucial that much of it ends up earmarked for Hitler's personal attention. Some of this stuff is really juicy, especially the reports that come out after Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941. There's talk of the Pope sympathetic to Germany's aim to destroy godless communism, or that the Vatican Secretariat of State has instructed Spanish bishops and clergy to support General Franco's recruitment efforts for the Blue Division of volunteer fighters for the Eastern Front. One report from October 1941 states that the German government and the Papal Commission for Russia have made an agreement for the re-establishment of Catholic institutions in the Soviet Union. A process of re-establishing dioceses and bishops has apparently already begun. Leiter Jasper is helpful enough to include a list of newly appointed bishops.
Unbelievable, literally.
Yes.
I mean, the Nazis are terrified about the church undermining their power in the East. Back in July, Hitler had stated that any missionary activity was absolutely out of the question. And Reinhard Heydrich thinks that the church is smuggling religious materials in via Italian, Hungarian, and Slovakian army priests. He firmly believes that the church is trying to build a Catholic empire stretching from Budapest to Moscow. Priests who have tried to enter places like Minsk have been arrested, even executed. There's no way that those same men would give an open door to the Vatican. What's going on? A secret change of heart in the Reich? Someone in the government making policy without informing senior figures like Ribbentrop or Heydrich?
Well, you're right. It's unbelievable because it isn't true.
Oh.
The Pope isn't supporting Franco's Blue Division, and there's no deal between the German government and the Vatican. Leiter Jasper, Rudolf Liko's star source in the Vatican, is nothing more than a con man. Almost nothing he reported on has been accurate. But things really heat up after the assassination of Reinhard Heydrich in May 1942. Heydrich, the anti-Catholic warrior, is killed by a group of Czech operatives supported by, Britain's SOE. The assassins take cover in a cathedral and are sheltered by the priest.
But that was an Orthodox cathedral, wasn't it?
Yes.
And the SS investigation reveals no links between the Vatican and the plots.
Well, Tim...
It's Timothy, my dear.
Sorry. Anyway, you know how it is with the Nazis. Evidence doesn't really matter. To Hitler, the Pope is the spy master behind any Christian resistance in Europe. Hartl, the SS man, has been telling anyone that will listen that the Pope has been sending Jesuits into Central Europe and Russia disguised as Orthodox priests. Okay, listen up. Hitler's absolutely paranoid that church-sponsored assassins are out to get him, just like Heydrich. I mean, he's not entirely wrong at that front, is he?
Meanwhile, the net is closing in on the Canary Circle. But it's not their espionage activities that give them away. They've also been helping Jews escape from Germany and occupied Europe. It brings together the Kreisau Circle and the Protestant resistance led by Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
Yeah. Now, did you remember the name Wilhelm Schmidhuber from our last episode? Like I told you, when I said, remember that name? Yes? You didn't. Well, I'll remind you. He was the man who had originally put Hans Oster in contact with Joey Ox back in 1939. He's got knowledge of Joy's visits to Rome, and he had helped supply some of the information carried over to Pius.
Schmidhuber is also right at the center of this effort to rescue Jews. The program has been assisted by American money. Schmidhuber is in charge of smuggling in and laundering those funds. You can see where this is going. Schmidhuber is arrested for money laundering in November 1942. For now, he bites his tongue under questioning.
You know how that works. Oster and Canaris know that it's only a matter of time until things turn nasty. Oster comments on Schmidhuber. He could send us all to the gallows. Still, the plots they are working on go ahead.
In spring 1943, there are two plots. The first is Treskov's bomb plots, which take place as Hitler flies home from a visit to the front of Smolensk on March 13th. And a few days later, when he visits a museum. As we know, both fail. The second is the plot to blow up Hitler as he visits his shiny new Siegfried bunker near Munich. Joey Ox and his Jesuit comrades are in full preparation as Hitler is on his way to Munich on the 4th of April.
And right then, at the worst possible moment, Schmidhuber chooses to begin talking. Under interrogation by military judge Manfred Röder, he spills everything he knows about the Jewish Underground Railroad and about Joey's trips to Rome. He names Oster, von Donani, and Canaris as the officers behind it all.
On April 5th, the authorities swoop in on the Abwehr headquarters, led by Röder and SS Inspector Franz Sondreger. They demand to search the desks and safes belonging to Donani and Oster. All the incriminating evidence about the Jewish escape project is there, along with an evaluation of the failure of the Treskov plot and arrangements for Joey's next visit to Rome, scheduled for April 9th. Oster attempts to conceal the evidence by hiding sheets of paper beneath his suit, but it's no use. Donani is arrested and taken into custody, and Oster is confined to house arrest.
Canaris escapes for now. The SS will have to build their case before they dare to go for the Admiral himself, but time is up for our friend Joey Ochs. He gets a warning phone call from the Munich Abwehr. He instructs his secretary at his law office to destroy what evidence she can. Then he rushes home to deal with all the paperwork he has stored in his study.
But he knows that this won't be enough to save him. He packs a suitcase for prison and says goodbye to his wife and his daughter. Soon, the Gestapo are at the door. Joey's handcuffed and pushed into the back of a car. He waves goodbye to his family and is driven off to a concentration camp, where he will spend the rest of the war. Joey, Oster, Donani, they're all out of the game. But maybe there's hope for the resistance. The Pope and Canaris, they are still in. The Kreisau Circle, led by Helmut von Moltke, and Father Rösch Jesuit Committee are still active.
Just 4 days after Joey's arrest, April 9th, a German Kübelwagen staff car is strafed by American planes in Tunisia. A colonel is thrown from the car, losing a hand, 2 fingers, and an eye in the process. The injured man is Klaus von Stauffenberg. He's no fan of Hitler at all, but has until now rebuffed Canaris' previous recruitment attempts. But perhaps an injury like this changes a man. We shall see. We shall see.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining me for these episodes, Timothy.
Thanks.
You
got my name right. Thank you.
I did. It was fun.
Yes, it has been indeed.
Yeah, let's do this again sometime soon, shall we?
Oh, yes, of course. I'm looking forward to that. Absolutely.
Absolutely. To get even more exciting stories like these, join the Time Ghost Army at timeghost.tv or patreon.com. Did you know? 9 out of 10 doctors actually recommend to join the Time Ghost Army.
Oh, so what sort of doctors are that?
Shh. And I will see you next time, darlings.
Bye.
Bye.